The moment you said no, they made you feel like a monster. And the worst part? You believed them. You spent the next 3 days replaying the conversation, wondering if you were too harsh, too selfish, too cold, asking yourself, what kind of person says no to someone they love? And so eventually, you took it back. You apologized. You gave in. You said yes, not because you wanted to, but because the guilt was unbearable. And now, here you are again, in the same position, with the same person, wondering why nothing ever changes. It does not change, because the boundary was never really set. Today that changes. Before we go anywhere, I want to say something important. This video is not going to tell you that boundaries are easy. It is not going to give you 5 magic sentences that make difficult people suddenly respect your limits. That is not how real life works, and you deserve better than that. What this video is going to do is show you why guilt happens when you set a boundary, why it is almost always a lie, and how the Stoics built such a clear relationship with their own values that other people's discomfort stopped having power over their decisions. Because here is the truth, that nobody starts with feeling guilty for having a boundary. Does not mean the boundary is wrong. It means someone taught you that your needs were less important than their comfort. And today we unlearn that together. Part 1. Why boundaries feel so wrong. Let me describe something, and I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar. Someone in your life, a parent, a partner, a friend, a sibling, asked you for something. Your time, your energy, your money, your presence, and something in you immediately knows, I cannot give this right now. Maybe you are exhausted. Maybe you have already given too much. Maybe this request crosses a line that has been crossed too many times before. So you open your mouth to say no. And before the word even fully forms, the guilt arrives. Not after you say no, but before. Like a reflex, like a warning system, like something wired so deep, you cannot even find where it started. And here is why that happens. Most of us were raised in environments where love and compliance were the same thing. Where being a good child meant doing what you were told. Where being a good partner meant never inconveniencing the other person. Where being a good friend meant always being available. Where putting yourself first, even once, even briefly, was taught to us as selfishness. And we learned. We learned well. We learned to smile when we were hurting. We learned to say yes when we meant no. We learned to shrink ourselves into whatever shape the people around us needed us to be. And we called it love. But here is what the Stoics would say. That is not love. That is conditioning. And there is a profound difference between the two. Love says, I care about you. Conditioning says, I will lose something if I do not make you comfortable. One comes from abundance. The other comes from fear. And every boundary you have ever failed to set was rooted not in love but in fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of being seen as difficult. Fear of losing the relationship. Fear of becoming the villain in someone else's story. The Stoics had a name for this kind of fear. They called it the fear of things outside our control. And they spent their entire philosophy teaching us how to be free of it. Part 2. What guilt is actually telling you. Here is something that will shift the way you think about guilt for the rest of your life. Guilt has 2 completely different versions, and most people never learn to tell them apart. Version 1, real guilt. Real guilt is the signal your conscience sends when you have genuinely done something wrong. You hurt someone. You broke a promise. You acted against your own values. Real guilt says, go fix this. And it is proportionate to the actual harm done. This version of guilt is healthy. It is your moral compass working correctly. Version 2, manufactured guilt. Manufactured guilt is the feeling someone else installs in you to keep you compliant. It arrives when you dare to have a need, when you dare to say no, when you dare to protect yourself. And it has been so perfectly calibrated to feel exactly like real guilt that most empathetic, caring people cannot tell the difference. Here is the test. Ask yourself one question. Did I actually do something wrong? Not, did I make them uncomfortable? Not, are they upset with me? Not, do they think I am being selfish? Did I actually do something wrong? If you said no to something you were not able to give, that is not wrong. If you created distance, from something that was hurting you, that is not wrong. If you chose your own peace over someone else's unreasonable expectation, that is not wrong. What you are feeling is not guilt. It is the discomfort of breaking a pattern that someone else built to benefit them. And that discomfort, as terrible as it feels, is not a signal to go back. It is a signal that the boundary is working. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Read that again. If it is not right, overextending yourself is not right. Sacrificing your peace for someone who has never once protected it is not right. Giving from an empty place until you have nothing left is not right. The boundary is not the wrong thing. The absence of one was. Part 3. The Stoic Case for Boundaries. Now let me introduce you to the Stoic idea. That changed everything for me. The Stoics divided all of existence into two categories: things in your control, things not in your control. In your control, your thoughts, your choices, your values, your responses, your effort. Not in your control, other people's feelings, other people's reactions, other people's opinions of your decisions, whether they approve of you, whether they are comfortable with your boundaries. Now here is where this becomes revolutionary. For anyone who struggles with guilt, when you set a boundary and someone reacts badly, their reaction is not in your control. You did not cause it. You cannot fix it. You are not responsible for it. What you are responsible for is your own well-being, your own choices, your own values. And here is the part most people miss entirely. Allowing someone to mistreat you does not make you a good person. It makes you an available one. There is a profound difference. A good person has standards. A good person protects their energy so they can show up fully for the people and things that matter. A good person understands that a boundary is not a wall. It is a definition. It defines where you end and where someone else begins. It defines what you will give and what you will not. It defines who you are when the pressure is on. Epictetus, who was literally a slave, who had every external freedom taken from him, still understood this. He said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." What is in your power is the standard you hold for yourself. The rest, how people respond to that standard, is not yours to carry. Part 4. The 5 boundaries most people never set. Now let us get into the real conversation, because boundaries is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but most people do not actually know what theirs are until someone crosses them, and by then, it is already too late to protect themselves without conflict. So here are the 5 boundaries that most people never set, and the Stoic wisdom behind each one. Boundary 1, the emotional boundary. This is the boundary that says, I will not be your emotional dumping ground. I will not absorb your anger every time life does not go your way. I will not sit with your anxiety at midnight when you have made no effort to manage it yourself. I will not be the person you call only when you are in crisis and never when things are good. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone close to you calls. You can tell immediately that something happened. They are dysregulated, and the next 45 minutes of your life are about to be consumed by their chaos. Again, the Stoic boundary here is simple. You can love someone and still have a limited capacity for their emotional output. You can care deeply about a person and still say, I want to be here for you. I'm not in a space to do that right now. Can we talk tomorrow? That sentence is not cruelty. That sentence is honesty. And honest relationships, even uncomfortable ones, are always healthier than ones built on self-sacrifice. Boundary 2, the time boundary. Your time is the only non-renewable resource you have. Every hour you give away is an hour you cannot get back. And yet, most of us give our time to whoever asks the loudest, not to what matters, not to what we value, to whoever makes us feel most guilty for saying no. The Stoic time boundary says, my time reflects my values. If I say spending time with my family matters, but I give every evening to someone else's demands, then I am lying to myself about what I value. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the Roman Empire. He had more demands on his time than almost any human in history, and yet he wrote every single morning in his journal. He protected that time as if the empire depended on it, because he understood. A man who cannot control his own time cannot control anything else. Your time boundary does not need a long explanation. I'm not available then is a complete sentence. Boundary 3, the energy boundary. Not all people take from you equally. Some people leave you feeling energized, understood, lighter. And some people, you know who they are, leave you feeling drained. Every single time. Not because they are evil, but because the dynamic is imbalanced. They take, you give. They take more, you give more, until there is nothing left, and you wonder why. You are so exhausted. The Stoic energy boundary requires honesty, the uncomfortable kind. You have to look at the relationships in your life and ask, does this person give me energy or cost me energy? Not every relationship needs to be equal. Some people need more than they can give right now. That is okay. But if it is always one direction, if you are always the giver, and they are always the taker, that is not a relationship. That is a dynamic, and you are the one maintaining it. Seneca wrote, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The people in your life should either be lifting you up or allowing you to lift them. When it is only ever one way, something needs to change. Boundary 4, the conversation boundary. There are topics you do not owe anyone access to. Your finances, your relationship, your body, your future plans, your private struggles. And yet, some people will push. They will ask questions. They have no right to ask. They will offer opinions. Nobody requested. They will comment on things that are none of their business and dress it up as concern. The Stoic conversation boundary is not aggressive. It is not defensive. It is simply redirecting. I prefer to keep that private. That is not something I am discussing right now. I appreciate your concern. I have it handled. No explanation. No justification. No lengthy defense of your right to privacy. You do not owe anyone the interior of your life, just because they are curious about it. Boundary 5, the physical and space boundary. Your space is an extension of your peace. Who comes into your home? Who has access to your personal belongings? Who is allowed to touch you? And in what way? These are not small things. These are the physical expressions of your self-respect. And the person who cannot respect your space is telling you something very important about how they view you, not as a person with needs, as a resource without limits. The Stoic space boundary says, my home is my sanctuary. My body is my own. My space reflects my standards, and my standards are not negotiable. Part 5, how to set a boundary without an apology. Now let us talk about the part most videos skip, the actual words, because knowing you need a boundary and knowing how to set one without collapsing into guilt, those are two completely different skills. Here is the formula. The 3-part Stoic boundary. 1. State your position clearly. 2. No lengthy explanation. 3. Hold it without negotiation. That is it. Let me show you what this looks like in real situations. Situation 1. The family member who always needs something. What most people say is, I'm so sorry, I just have so much going on right now. I feel terrible, I wish I could help. Maybe next week, I hope you understand. I really do want to be there for you. What the Stoic says, I cannot do that right now. I hope you find what you need. Situation 2, the friend who oversteps. What most people say is, oh, it is fine, do not worry about it. I do not want to make a big deal. What the Stoic says, when you do that, it does not work for me. I need you to stop. Situation 3, the colleague who dumps their work on you. What most people say is, I guess I can try. I'm pretty busy, but I will figure it out. What the Stoic says, that is not something I can take on. You will need to find another solution. Situation 4, the partner who dismisses your feelings. What most people say is, maybe I am overreacting. You are probably right. Forget I said anything. What the Stoic says, I felt hurt by what happened. I'm not asking for a debate about whether I should have. I'm telling you how I feel and what I need. Notice what every Stoic response has in common. No apology for the boundary. No lengthy explanation. No invitation to negotiate. Just clear them. Warm where necessary. Immovable. That combination is not aggression. It is self-respect speaking. in its clearest voice. Part 6. When the people you love push back. Now here is where most boundary conversations break down completely, because everything we have talked about is manageable with strangers, with acquaintances, with people you do not care about deeply. The real test, the place where the guilt becomes almost unbearable, is when the people pushing back are the people you love most. The parent who says, "After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me?" The partner who says, "You have changed. You are not who I fell in love with." The friend who says, "I thought we were closer than this." These sentences are designed, consciously or not, to make your boundary feel like a betrayal. And for an empathetic person, someone who genuinely loves the people in their life, it almost works every time. So here is what I want you to hold on to. When this happens, the people who truly love you will not require you to abandon yourself. To prove it, a relationship that can only survive your self-sacrifice was never a healthy relationship. It was a dynamic, one that served one person at the expense of the other. And challenging that dynamic, even when it creates discomfort, is not destroying the relationship. It is giving it the only real chance it has ever had. Marcus Aurelius faced this in the court of Rome. Advisors who had known him for years pushed back when he drew lines. Generals tested his limits. Even family members put pressure on his decisions. And he returned every time, not to the pressure, to his principles. What do I believe is right here? Not what will keep the peace. Not what will make them comfortable. Not what will make them approve of me. What do I believe is right? That question is your anchor. Return to it every single time the guilt rises. Part 7. The Daily Stoic Boundary Practice. Philosophy without practice is decoration. The Stoics trained the mind daily, deliberately, consistently. Here are 3 daily practices that will make boundaries feel less like confrontation and more like self-respect in its most natural form. Practice 1. The morning clarity. Before you begin your day, before you check your phone, before you respond to anyone, sit for 2 minutes and ask yourself, what do I need today to show up as my best self? Not what does everyone else need from me? What do I need? Then protect that thing like it is non-negotiable, because it is. Practice 2. The pause before yes. Anytime someone makes a request, before you respond, pause for 3 full seconds. In those 3 seconds ask, do I actually want to do this? Do I have the capacity to do this? Will saying yes cost me something I cannot afford to give right now? If the answer to any of those is no, then your response is no. Not maybe. Not let me see. Not I will try. No. Practice 3. The evening audit. Every evening before sleep, 3 minutes only, ask yourself, where did I hold my boundary today? Where did I abandon it? What did the abandonment cost me? Not to punish yourself, to see the pattern clearly, because you cannot change what you refuse to look at. And the moment you start seeing clearly, honestly, without judgment, how often you give yourself away, the cost becomes undeniable. And undeniable costs have a way of motivating change that no amount of inspiration ever could. Part 8. What boundaries actually build. I want to close with something that most boundary conversations never get to, because most of what you read and hear about boundaries is focused on what they keep out. The toxic people, the energy drains, the unreasonable demands. And that is true and important. But here is what boundaries also build. Authentic relationships. When you stop pretending you are okay with things that hurt you, the relationships that survive that honesty become something completely different. They become real, because they are no longer built on your performance of acceptability. They are built on truth. And truth, even uncomfortable truth, is the only foundation a relationship can actually stand on. Self-trust. Every time you set a boundary and hold it, you send a message to yourself. I can be trusted to protect myself. And that self-trust, built quietly, one boundary at a time, is the foundation of every good thing you will ever build in your life. Because a person who trusts themselves does not need constant external validation. They already know their own worth. Peace, not the false peace of compliance and silence. Real peace, the peace of a person who knows what they stand for, who knows what they will accept and what they will not, who walks through the world, not bracing for the next demand, but grounded, clear, completely at home in themselves. That is the peace the Stoics were after. Not a life free of difficulty, but a life free of the internal conflict that comes from betraying yourself over and over again in the name of keeping others comfortable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Your boundary is the door to that retreat. Set it, hold it, return to it daily, and watch how the quality of everything, your relationships, your energy, your sense of self, changes, not because the world got better, but because you stopped making yourself smaller to fit into it. You are not a monster for having needs. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not cold for saying no to something you cannot honestly give. You are a person with limits, with needs, with a peace that deserves protecting. And the people who love you will not require you to prove that love by abandoning all of those things. They will love you with them. Boundaries intact, standards visible, and peace, finally, genuinely, quietly, is yours. If this reached something in you that needed to be reached, share it with someone who has spent too long saying yes when everything in them meant no. And follow this channel, because every single day we bring you the truth, the tools, and the Stoic mindset to build a life where you never have to choose between being loved and being whole. Both are possible. You just have to decide. You are worth both. See you in the next one.